The Senate Foreign Relations Committee will come to order. Today's treaty hearing comes at a time when the importance of strengthening our bonds and reinforcing the rule of law is as clear as ever. So I'm grateful to the ranking member for helping make this hearing happen, and I also want to thank both panels of highly qualified experts for appearing today. Our committee has a critical constitutional role to play in the treaty-making process, and what we do directly impacts U.S. national security, law enforcement, businesses, and consumers. While the treaties on the agenda today cover varied subject matters, they have a common feature. They all make technical updates to frameworks from years past, updates that are required to maximize our engagement with other countries, and in the case of the Tuna Treaty amendments and Kigali, for our industries to stay competitive. Turning first to the pair of bilateral law enforcement treaties with Croatia, we know that modern criminal networks do not observe international borders. Terrorists, cybercriminals, drug traffickers aren't limited to one country or another, and addressing the threat they pose requires intense cooperation. These treaties with Croatia will improve our law enforcement relationship with Croatia, enhancing the ability to extradite criminals, share information, and exchange evidence for investigations and prosecutions. Next, we'll hear testimony about amendments to the 1987 South Pacific Tuna Treaty. The Tuna Treaty has long been a cornerstone of U.S. economic interests in the South Pacific and our relations with other countries in the region. Reinforcing those bonds is more important than ever, especially in the face of growing Chinese influence. Our fishing industry and U.S. consumers have long benefited from access to fishing waters in the Pacific, but our fishing fleet needs a better deal, which these amendments would provide. For instance, the amendments would make it easier for U.S. fishing vessels to fish on the high seas, and the new amendments would allow U.S. businesses to negotiate commercial fishing arrangements directly with our Pacific Island partners without the federal government as a middleman. The Tuna Treaty has long been vital to U.S. economic interests and our strategic influence in the region, and modernizing it will support even more economic activity and further burnish our relationships with important partners. Finally, we will look at the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. The United States ratified the Montreal Protocol more than 3 decades ago, and as U.S. companies have innovated and developed new technologies and products, the Senate has approved 4 amendments to keep up with those advances. The Kigali Amendment modernizes the Montreal Protocol by addressing chemicals called hydrofluorocarbons, HFCs. HFCs became a commonplace alternative to dangerous ozone-depleting substances in response to the Montreal Protocol, but we know now that they are dangerous in their own right. Beginning with the engagement and encouragement of the George W. Bush administration, U.S. manufacturers have led the development of the next generation of refrigerants and technologies to replace HFCs, and President Trump took a major step towards domestic adoption of this next-gen technology by signing the AIM Act into law. Senate approval of the Kigali will help U.S. businesses, including manufacturers in Texas, Tennessee, and Wisconsin, develop and access global markets, and it is necessary so that they don't get locked out from trade with other partners to the treaty. We have received an outpouring of support for the Kigali Amendment from the business community, including many letters. This includes letters from Walmart, Carrier, Lennox, and others. And I ask for consent to enter these letters into the record, and we'll provide them to the clerk. Without objection, so ordered. Industry estimates calculate that ratifying the Kigali Amendment will help increase U.S. exports by $5 billion and create 33,000 U.S. manufacturing jobs. In contrast, our exports and export-related jobs are predicted to contract significantly if we fail to do so. All 4 previous amendments passed with bipartisan support, and I hope this one will as well. I'm pleased that we have an opportunity today to hear from government experts on international cooperation in these areas. Acting Legal Advisor to the State Department, Richard Visek, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State John Thompson from the Oceans Environment and Science Bureau, and Vaughn Airy, the Director of the Office of International Affairs at the Department of Justice. Testifying on our second panel of industry experts, we have Mr. Stephen Yorick, CEO of the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute, based in Arlington, Virginia, who will testify on the significance of the Kigali Amendment, and Mr. Jim Sousa, President of the America Tuna Boat Association and Director of GS Fisheries from San Diego, California, who is here to testify on the amendments to the South Pacific Tuna Treaty. With that, let me turn to the distinguished ranking member, Senator Risch, for his remarks.